cricket and racism. A brand new report into English cricket, basically, well, English and Welsh cricket, but really focused very much on what's been going on in English cricket, has basically said there's widespread discrimination in English cricket. Racism, sexism, classism and elitism widespread, according to a long-awaited independent report by the Independent Commission for Equity in Cricket. Well, in a moment, we'll talk to the former England cricketer, Monty Panesar, find out what his experiences were. First up, let's talk to a senior correspondent at The Cricketer, then the author of a book on this very issue, George Dobell, who joins us now. Good morning to you.
Morning.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us. This report is absolutely damning. Tell us in a bit more detail what they're saying.
Well, it basically says the game has become extremely exclusive and it will find lots of reasons to exclude. It will exclude if you're a woman, it will exclude if you're a person of colour, and it will exclude if you can't afford to get on the pathways. So it's become a niche sport, sadly, and it hopefully is a wake-up call. I mean, the positive interpretation of all this is that the game has acknowledged it's got a problem, has identified the issues, and has a bit of a route map to find a solution.
We've seen so many reports. We had reports into the Yorkshire Cricket Board. We've seen reports into every organisation going about this institutional racism, institutional sexism, misogyny and things like that. And I think that's where a lot of people get confused. Like, is it everybody saying, everybody working in cricket is a horrible, sexist, racist, whatever, classist, pig? Or is it that there's no one in authority who's standing up, and that people who are victims of this treatment don't have anyone to go to, and if they do complain, people just shrug and go, what's the issue? Is that what's going on?
It's more the latter. I don't think there's any suggestion that everyone in cricket is deliberately racist, but there has been look, there are various things in the system that are designed to exclude, whether on purpose or not. And I'll give you a few examples. If you're a talented kid, boy or girl, and you're spotted by your local team, you could be invited to training. Yeah. And they will say, typically, well, that'll be £250 for the coaching and £200 for the kit. So immediately you're excluding quite a lot of people. Now, that might not be deliberate, but the fact is that on socioeconomic grounds, you are excluding people.
Oh, but I'm sorry, this is the thing. I mean, lots of us are excluded from doing lots of different things. If we don't go to a school that's got a cricket pitch sized playground, I mean, that's the case for an awful lot of kids who go to I mean, if you go to Harrow or Eton, you're going to have access to everything. If you've got rich parents, you have access to, music lessons, which you wouldn't have otherwise. I mean, when we use these terms exclusion, I mean, that is not classism or elitism. That's just, I'm sorry, life's not fair. When you were born, did anyone say it was going to be fair? I mean, what it doesn't make sense is if we want to do really well in sport, we need to make sure that every kid has access to these facilities so we can push. We've got a far greater pool to choose our top sportsmen and women from. So
well, you've largely answered your own question, haven't you? About one of the reasons that you would want everyone to feel they have an opportunity to progress in the sport is because you want the sport to be played to the highest possible standard. But not just that, the sport is crying out for new markets. Yeah. It needs new incomes. And what we found is there are lots of people of colour and lots of women who want to be involved. All we need to do is open the door. It's actually quite a simple solution in some ways. The other more disturbing... Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt
No, carry on.
Well, I was just going to say the other maybe slightly more disturbing stuff is around, for example, nearly 90% of people of Pakistan and Bangladeshi heritage have experienced discrimination in the last few years, and only 1 in 4 have bothered to report it. And having been through that process myself with Azim Rafiq, they're right. There's not been a lot of point reporting things because you will be ignored, you will be silenced, you will be sidelined.
But the key thing about this is, can I point out though, but this is of the respondents. So they said, we're doing a big report into racism and sexism, classism, and then people responded. Almost by definition, when it's self-selecting like that, the people who haven't had a problem don't bother responding. Most people go, I've had it fine. Now, of course, it's more likely that your average white posh male won't have had a problem, of course. But I'm just saying that I don't know necessarily how much we can read into that about how widespread the problem is, because obviously it's too widespread. I mean, one case of each is too many. But that overplays it. It's not, we've polled everybody in cricket, a representative sample, and this is the percentage. By definition, these are the people who are more likely to have had a problem.
Well, I mean, if you read, this time yesterday, I was pouring through all 317 pages of the report. Those sort of middle-class white people that you talk about, of which I'm one, of course, were invited to have their say and did.
No, people have their say, but by definition, look, you know, if there's a poll, would you like to get in touch? If it's not something I feel strongly about, because I've never experienced it, I'm less likely to have my say. This is not a poll. This is when they say, you know, it's 90% of Pakistani and Bangladeshi heritage people experience this issue. No, of the people who got in touch and responded to an independent report into racism.
Yes, I'm not sure if there's a better way of doing it.
Yes, there is a better way of doing it. You poll
these
people.
Are quite significant. These are quite significant numbers. Can I give you an example of my own experience? Because I'm a terribly fortunate fellow in many ways. You know, I've had a lovely career in the game, and a couple of years ago, I was contacted by a couple of umpires who pointed out to me that no umpire of colour had been appointed to the English list since 1992. And it was about 2020, 2021 when this happened. And I hadn't noticed. And I hadn't noticed, I think, because I sit in my very comfortable press box surrounded by people who look like me and think like me. And sometimes it's very important, the point being, to hear from people whose voices haven't been heard.
Oh, no, absolutely. No, I absolutely agree with you on that. But I'm just saying that we need to be careful about when we talk about the scale of the problem, about who's actually been asked. George Jabbar, I really appreciate you joining us. He's the author of Azim Rafiq's book, and he's also senior correspondent at the Cricketeer, I should say. Right now, let's talk to a former England cricketer himself, Monty Panesar, who joins us. Delighted to say good morning to you, Monty.
Good morning. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Appreciate that. Now, working as a sports broadcaster, of course. I just want to play you a clip of the chairman of the ECB, the English and Welsh Cricket Board, Richard Thompson, apologising after this report was published to people who've been excluded from cricket or made to feel they don't belong. Let's have a quick watch and listen to what he had to say.
Today's report is a wake-up call for cricket. We must never again exclude anyone on the basis of their ethnicity, gender or social background. On behalf of the ECB and wider leadership of the game, I apologise to anyone who's ever been excluded from cricket or made to feel like they don't belong. Cricket should be a game for everyone, and this has not always been the case, and we are truly sorry.
That's what the chairman of the ECB, Richard Thompson, had to say, Monty Panesar. In your experience, you came up through the ranks, Essex, Sussex, Northamptonshire, played, of course, for our national squad, England. Is cricket a sport that's open to everyone?
Well, I think I was very fortunate, growing up. I, played for Northampton, and, my coach there was John Embry. He was a spin bowling coach. Nick Cook was a second-team spin coach as well. And then when I was trying to get Essex, there was John Charles, again, another left-arm spinner. So for me, I was very lucky that, there's this wealth of spin coaches around who kind of were pushing me and promoting me.
You didn't come up against any leftism, so that's okay.
Yeah, I obviously was. I was obviously very lucky. And then when I played for England, the fans absolutely loved me. And, so my experience was a little slightly different. And then, when you walk into a room, everyone kind of recognises who you are. So, I think my experience isn't a fair representation of people who play the game. And also being a British Asian, I think also, I represent them as well. And I think, things that ECB need to do is, for example, get more kind of sporting facilities in urban areas, where 50% of British Asians are in them sort of pockets. So they're the kind of things that they probably need to do, is increase more sporting facilities. One example of that, Northamptonshire, what they're doing at the moment, they had the Luton Steelbacks Academy, which David Ripley actually does coaching there with one of the colleges in Luton to get more maybe British Asian, cricketers coming through the pathway
You just
system.
need to be exposed to it in the way that, the playing fields of Eton and Harrow, you'll be exposed to it automatically, and you've got the equipment. And again, it does involve more equipment and more space than kicking a ball around and, and put your coats down as goalposts. And so therefore it's less accessible. But again, it seems to be very accessible. I mean, the Indian subcontinent, I mean, you know, Pakistan and India, I mean, people go absolutely crazy. It's not even national sport, it's the only sport that matters. In terms of your colleagues, black and Asian colleagues, when you were playing in county cricket and in international cricket, did they talk to you about experiences they've had? Because when we heard the evidence from Azim Rafiq, he gave evidence to a select committee in Commons talking about the experience he's had, the sort of the day in, day out, I think that awful phrase, microaggressions. It's not just casual racism, if such a thing exists. And the women we are reporting, just day in, day out being treated as basically subordinate and second class. Is that anything whether you experienced any of it yourself or not, whether you heard other people talking about it?
Well, I think, the players that obviously who played on a regular basis had successful careers. They kind of felt very much included because, you're part of team meetings, you're part of the 11, you become one of the senior members, you become one of the guys who's going to win the game, for your county and your country. And I think the guys who obviously have spoken about it have been fringe players, and you can understand, they may felt that they weren't so included, and you need to listen to them why they felt that kind of discrimination and whatever. So I think the ECB, look, you got to give credit to the ECB to be open, to this conversation. And I think a lot of counties are going to be open to make, their pathway systems a lot better. I think the problem is one issue is how do we get more state school, talented cricketers coming through the system and fast tracking them so they can see in front of the eyes of a scout or a county coach and then think, right, this is a really good cricketer, he or she. And then they're in the system. I think that's one area where probably the ECB need to work on is trying to get more cricketers, especially from less privileged backgrounds, to get an opportunity to play and the good ones to come through the system.
Absolutely. Really good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed, Monty Panesar, former England cricketer, of course. This is Talk Breakfast.